Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Musgrove here. Hope you guys are doing well. Make sure you hit thumbs up on the video. Make sure you share this video across your social media platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Massive 57% of you don't at the moment. And it really does help us grow the channel. Your support is much appreciated. And a quick reminder as well, the episode is sponsored by NordVPN. And if you want to be protected, your personal details protected as you're using public Wi-Fi and a host of other benefits as well, make sure you click the link in our podcast description box for a very, very special discounted offer on your NordVPN plan. A couple extra few months included in the plan. One sign-up can be used across 10 devices, so it's value for money. Costs the same about the same price as a premium cup of coffee. Give you that peace of mind, especially this time as well when you're probably doing your Christmas shopping online. So support the podcast, keep yourself safe. Ladies and gents, we're talking about Callum Wilson. Newcastle United's number 9 has picked up another injury and he's set to be out until at least the middle of February. Huge blow for Newcastle United, huge blow for Callum Wilson, although I have to say I'm not overly surprised at the news. Let me know in the comments just how surprised at the news you are. When I read it last night, great exclusive from Craig Hope, it was just a feeling of, oh, here we go again. But I wasn't surprised by it. I was good because I want to see a fit Callum Wilson as an option for Eddie Howe. I think Eddie Howe needs a striker. Everyone needs a striker of his capabilities ready to play. But I wasn't surprised at the news. If you're a regular listener, a regular viewer of the podcast, you know I've been banging on for months about my fears that as soon as Callum Wilson returns to action, it won't be very long until he's back in the physio room. Did I think it would happen after 4 games and a few sub appearances? No. Did I think it would happen after 57 minutes worth of football? No. I am a little bit shocked how quickly it's happened, but the threat of it happening was always looming over him. And sadly, it has happened. And I have to say, I have to be honest, mid-February, hamstring injury. We've been here before when, we've been given reported dates of return and then it's been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. I wouldn't be surprised, and I have to say this with huge sadness, if we don't see Callum Wilson again for Newcastle United. And that, it hurts to say because he's such a good centre forward. He is up there with one of the best centre forwards we've seen at Newcastle United, one of the best number 9s we've seen at Newcastle United, and we know who has gone before him. Is he at the level of Alan Shearer? No, but I don't think he's far off that level of elite number 9s, elite Premier League strikers, elite centre forwards that Newcastle United have had. And if he'd managed to stay fit, we wouldn't be talking about 47 Premier League goals for Newcastle United. We'd be talking well into the hundreds. We would be. And it's such a shame that he's going to get nowhere near that. He's probably not going to get 50 goals in the Premier League for Newcastle United. It is a real sadness. But if I was a betting man, and it's just my opinion, I really wouldn't be surprised if we've seen the last of him. You want him to have that send-off. It would be great to see him back in mid-February to give Eddie Howe that option going into the final home straight of the campaign. You could use him to get into Europe. You could use him to maybe get to the FA Cup final. Who knows? But with his luck with injuries, with his history of injuries, how long it's taken him in recent seasons to bounce back from similar injuries, we could be talking April. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not going to hazard a guess, but all I'm saying is I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him again. And it's a massive, massive shame. The numbers of games he's missed is staggering. So he's signed in the summer of 2020 and he's missed 100 games in that time. 100 games. It's absolutely crazy. He's missed 129 days between July and November of this season. Of course, picked up an injury while the squad were in Germany at that pre-season training camp and was sent home, and we had to wait until the game against West Ham last month to see him. Newcastle, of course, lost that game 3-1. He's then been on the bench, and it's the game against Brentford, the last game Newcastle United played. They lost 4-2. He played 17 minutes of that game, and that's where he's picked up this injury. And really, what can you say? You're gutted from, you are. And I know a lot of people say, why are you gutted from? Why do you have sympathy? He's getting paid £100,000 odd a week. Okay, that is fair. That's one argument. But he doesn't want to be injured. He doesn't want to spend the last few years of his career, or on the physio's bench, looking out, thinking he wants to be playing. Of course he does. So you can have that sympathy towards Callum Wilson. It's not about how much money he's getting paid and all that. Just human to human, you can feel sorry for him. You really, really can. You can feel sorry for Eddie Howe. You can feel sorry for Alexander Isak. It's a horrible, horrible situation, but it goes back really to whether Newcastle United made the right decision to gamble on Callum Wilson's fitness by not cashing in the summer. It would have been a little bit difficult to do because, of course, he picked up that injury in the pre-season. But could they have cashed in last January when there was reported interest from Atletico Madrid, reported interest from clubs in the Middle East? Was that a time to cash in on Callum Wilson? It's funny there was that interest because he actually was injured for the majority of January. He played kind of the Christmas games, but then he was out injured, and still that interest was there. And you now look back and think, if someone had put 10, 50 million pounds on the table, was it worth cashing in? And in hindsight, you would probably say it was. I put forward the idea earlier this season that when Callum Wilson is back fit, when he's passed, is it worth just wrapping him up on cotton wool, not putting him in the matchday squads, not bringing him off the bench, and just keeping him fit so that when it gets to January and the market opens, someone can come in, offer 8 to 10 million pounds, and Newcastle go, do you know what, I'm cashing in. He's out of contract in the summer anyway. And to be honest, if he plays more than 5 or 6 games without picking up an injury, it's a boost. So that kind of idea was laughed at. I stick by that idea. I think that would have been a sensible idea to do. Of course, it's a lot easier said than done because Eddie Howe needs those options. He needs a backup to Callum Wilson. He needs someone of Callum Wilson's level. And if you've got a fit Callum Wilson and you think he's fit and ready to go, you're not going to wrap him up in cotton wool, are you? You want him on the pitch. You want to use him. You want to help share the load with Alexander Isak. It means Anthony Gordon can stay out on the wings. You don't want to have Anthony Gordon up top if you can help it. So that's where Callum Wilson comes into it. But again, let me know in the comments. Is that now something you think maybe the club could have considered? Just keeping Callum Wilson training, don't put him into first team action and sell him in January. Again, wild theory, easier said than done, but that's maybe something they could have looked at because now they ain't selling him in January. No one's coming in for him in January because he's injured. He's going to leave on a free in the summer. Newcastle United aren't going to be able to recoup any money at all. And it's just a sad end to his Newcastle United career, really. It really, really is. But again, not a massive, massive surprise. I've done a little bit of numbers, actually, on how many games Alexander Isak and Callum Wilson have been available for, because this is probably the other regret. There's a big what if, what could have been. Could Callum Wilson have got anywhere near Alan Shearer's goal-scoring record? I mean, it would have taken quite something. But, the other big regret is how many matches Eddie Howe has had Alexander Isak and Callum Wilson available. And it is not many at all. So 44 times they've been in the same squad together. 22 times they've been on the pitch at the same time, and only once have they completed 90 minutes together, and that was against Brighton, and Newcastle won 4-1. They've only played 841 minutes together in the time they've both been at the club, which is not not many minutes at all. Now, some would say, well, Eddie Howe is never going to play two up top because of the way the formation is, but Alexander Isak is quite comfortable on the left, and he could maybe play on the right as well. So there was that option. The bottom line is, you are kind of correct by saying Eddie Howe would never play two up top, but he's never really had the chance because they've not had all that much opportunity to try it out. And it's a shame. It is a real, real shame that Alexander Isak and Callum Wilson haven't played more minutes together, and Eddie Howe has not had the option to try that out because it could be lethal. On their day, fit and ready to go, you have two of the best strikers I think the Premier League has ever seen in Alexander Isak and Callum Wilson. But unfortunately, one has a terrible injury record, and that's Callum Wilson, isn't it? And it is a massive shame. It is a massive shame. The other big question is what happens now? What happens now? So Newcastle United gamble on Callum Wilson's fitness. They haven't gone and signed a ready-made striker in the summer. They brought in William Asula, who Eddie Howe has quite clearly has made quite clear he doesn't think is ready for first team action. We've barely seen him this season at all. Are we going to see more of him? Obviously, you've got the Christmas schedule coming up, lots of games. Alexander Isak, can he handle that schedule? It's not just about fitness, it's about form as well. If he's having an off day, is Usula going to be thrown in? I have to say, the likelihood of that happening, I don't think is high. I think it's awkward because Eddie Howe clearly wants to keep on developing Usula away from first team action. He wants to concentrate on working with him day in day out throughout the week on the training pitch, and then he's on the bench for maybe that kind of first experience of the squad. But you can see by the minutes he's played, he's not fancying him. I don't think that's to do with ability or talent wise. I just don't think he thinks he's ready yet. But that's all good and well when the situation allows you to do that. When you have Callum Wilson, when you have Alexander Isak, there's options, and then Anthony Gordon. But you don't have that. And Eddie Howe's hand might be forced. I think most other managers' hands would be forced, and they would change and deviate from their approach when it comes to William Masula. But you know what? I don't think Eddie Howe will. I think Eddie Howe will persist with Anthony Gordon as that second striker. And that, for me, just does not work. When you remove Anthony Gordon off that left flank, whether it be to put up top, whether it be put on the right, it just does not work. And I think Newcastle are better with Anthony Gordon on the left. And it just doesn't work as a central striker. But Howe has gone on record to say he thinks he plays quite well there. I think there's no doubt in his effort and commitment, but he's just not effective. He doesn't look comfortable there, in my opinion. So I think Newcastle United will struggle if Alexander Isak needs to come off, and it is Gordon up top, and it's not William Masula, who's a bit more in the mould of a striker, isn't he? But as we've seen already this season, Eddie Howe likes to use that option of Gordon up front. I think that's what he will do until we get the January transfer market. And then the big question is, do they go out and sign a striker in the January transfer market? I put this out on social media last night and asked people whether their priorities now change. Has it gone from someone to play on the right to someone who can come up top? Has it gone from a centre-back to someone who can play up top? Because a lot of people's priorities before the Callum Wilson news was either centre-back or a right winger. For me, it remains a right winger. I think it was always going to be someone who was versatile, who was probably predominantly someone who could play on the right, but was equally his home, maybe up top or on the left, but a bit more effective up top than Anthony Gordon. You're looking at someone like Brian Obama who can actually do a job up top. Now, a lot of people actually haven't changed their minds. The reaction and replies that I got said it remains a right winger. That was the majority of replies, was that the right wing remains the priority. Centre back as well. A few people did say they need to go out and sign a striker. Most of the replies I got actually said it's time to see more of William Masula. So he has the backing of a lot of fans on social media. Of course, as I always say, when it comes to William Masula, you trust the manager. Of course you do. Eddie Howe's earned his stripes. Look at how Lewis Hall's coming on. So if Usula can follow in the footsteps of Lewis Hall, and this time next season we're seeing the benefits, we'll all be hailing Eddie Howe. But I get the clamour to see William Masula, especially now given this news about Callum Wilson. The January transfer market, will plans change? Well, the reports say no. The reports say that Newcastle's plans will not change. They will stick to what they plan to do. And we've seen that in previous windows when Newcastle United aren't really reactive to situations because they've got this long-term plan. And I think that's great. I think that is a really good thing. I think the PSR issues obviously kind of handcuff them to what they can do. I don't think they'll spend big in January. I said on the Monday show, I'm not entirely sure. In my heart of hearts, I think they'll actually bring in a player because of the PSR counts in June. Will signing a player for 40, 50 million push them close, and then we'll see a blind panic come the end of June to move someone on. We don't want to be in that position again. I'm sure the club don't want to be in that position again. So I think they'll be very, very careful. I think they'll look to do deals, but I wouldn't be overly surprised if we got a February the 1st and Newcastle United haven't signed anyone, which a lot of people say, are you crazy? You can't go another window without signing a big name and someone to freshen it up. But, the PSR threat is real. It really, really is. So I think the club will be extremely careful not to go above the allowed restrictions, and obviously no one wants to see a points deduction. I know the squad needs freshening up, but it's the rules are just awful. They are really, really harming not just Newcastle but other clubs in the Premier League. And the men and women at St James's Park making the decisions, counting the coins, are going to have to do something really, really clever, I think, to help Eddie Howe in January. Probably going to have to sell before the buy as well, which is another factor to why I definitely don't think they'll bring in a striker, and to why it might be a push to bring in, a real improvement to what they've got so far. The loan market is there. Could they go after maybe someone like Shane Ferguson, perhaps from Brighton, and give him, 6 months of first team football? That could be an option. But look, it's not a job that I envy anyone doing, to be fair, because January is going to be a very tough month. It traditionally is, and with the need for additions, and now this news, pressure heightens a little bit with the previous windows and being left underwhelmed. The pressure's already there to a certain extent. So Newcastle United will definitely be trying their best, but it's whether they can navigate the difficult market that January is and those PSR restrictions. If you ask me right now who my number one pick would be, for a long time it's been Brian Abermo. I think he's brilliant. We saw last Saturday what he can do. Absolutely brilliant. He can create goals. He can score goals. He's got the running power about him. It's just a top player. But if I had a magic wand and it was a realistic option, I would be looking at Matheus Cunha from Wolves. Obviously, he would cost a pretty penny as well, at least £50 million. But it's the versatility that he gives you. He can play up top, he can play on both flanks, and he can play as a number 10 as well, which would allow Eddie Howe to change the formation if need be. And currently, Newcastle United haven't got an out-and-out number 10, but Cunha can play there and he can really add something. He scored 7 goals this season for a terrible Wolves side. He's been absolutely superb for them, though, the real shining light. Every time I watch him, I'm just impressed with him. So he would be my signing, but given where Wolves are on the table, they're fighting for their lives. You can't see them selling their best player. And if they did so, it would be for a very, very expensive transfer fee. But he would be my pick. Other people are saying look to the continent, look to South America and try and pick up a bit of a bargain. So any names that you are thinking of, pop in the comments and I'll get back to you. Lookman from Atlanta is one of them. He is someone who's impressing in Serie A, but he'll have loads of suitors. I've seen Arsenal linked to him as well, but he would be up there at the top of the list as well. But look, you're going to sign quality. It's going to cost you a lot of money, and that just brings you right back round to the PSR counts, and that is going to be a huge headache for Newcastle United, Paul Mitchell, and it already was a huge headache. But now with the news of Callum Wilson, it just becomes a thumping headache, doesn't it? It becomes a constant headache. So it's going to be a difficult month, but it doesn't look like their plans are going to change, and they're going to stick to what they originally were going to do, which we imagine is target someone on the right and potentially maybe go back in for Mark Guéhi as well. So we'll wait and see what happens. But on Callum Wilson, yeah, good. Just good. Good for Eddie Howe more than anything as well, because he would have been rubbing his hands at the prospect of having Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak to use. Play one, bring one off the bench, even play both at the same time. 2 dangerous marksmen, and it's been taken away from him. Such a shame that Callum Wilson's career is likely to end on a bit of a sour note. Not his fault. I understand the anger towards him. I know his comments in the matchday programme for the Liverpool game, I think it was, didn't go down particularly well. He kind of went after the critics, but I don't think you can be too angry at him. He doesn't want to be injured. It's just his body letting him down. I just briefly want to read quickly his Instagram post, his social media post that he put out this morning. And I think you can really sense the emotion that he's feeling. And him, more than anyone, will be absolutely gutted at this news. And that's what he says in his statement. He says, despite all the hard work I've put in pushing to get back to full fitness, I need to take a little step backwards, unfortunately. Frustrating as it is for everyone out there waiting for my return and to be able to help the team, these shortcomings also upset and frustrate me more than anybody else. I am doing everything in my power to rediscover the best version of myself and finally get off this emotional roller coaster, which I'm hoping 2025 will bring. Appreciate the patience, love and support from all those closest that know how hard I really work and how professional I always am, Callum. And no one is doubting how hard he works. No one is doubting how professional he is. Not in doubt. It's just his body has let him down yet again. And Newcastle United, in many ways, Newcastle United can't afford to finish the season with just Alexander Isak as your out-and-out striker. But I think they probably will do, if I'm being honest. Just looking at what he's done prior, and it's just my opinion. In an ideal world, you want someone as good as Alexander Isak in there pushing him week in, week out, because competition makes you a better player. You've got that with Callum Wilson if he was fit. He rarely is, unfortunately. So it's going to be really interesting to see if Newcastle United surprise everyone and do change their plans in January, or whether they go for that right winger, someone who is equally as home up top. Only those in the boardroom truly know, so we'll wait and see what happens. But yeah, wishing Callum Wilson all the best. Hopefully he's back. Hopefully he comes back as quickly as possible and he doesn't get injured again, and he can finish the season strongly. He can have the best send-off possible. But even if he did come back, I wouldn't be giving him a new contract. I would be letting him go in the summer and let him, finish his career maybe in the Middle East, where the demands aren't as high. But hopefully we will see him again in black and white, because it would be a sad, sad end to his career if we didn't. And hopefully he gets at least one more goal in front of the Gallagate. Hopefully he gets 3 more, because I would love it if he could finish on 50. Wouldn't you? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, Callum Wilson injured once again. Absolutely gutting news for everyone concerned.